Good morning. Hi, Jen. How are
Hello.
you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for doing this masterclass, our Alchemy Digital Collective session today. Um, Brief introduction of you, Jen Doe from Bricks House Consulting, former cannabis tech founder, and lots of other really deep experience in the tech space. So I'm really excited to have you as our speaker today because I really believe that your history has led you directly into now this conversation that we're having. And I love how all of the things that you've done in the background over the course of your career really has led to where we are foundationally in our tech space now. And you and I both being tech founders and having lived in technology for a good part of our careers, I think it really lends itself to where we are. And being able to provide the Alchemy Digital Collective Foundation, particularly to help guide women through this process. AI is such a thing right now, and no one really knows
Mhm.
where it's going, what it's doing. Even those of us that are providing certifications and those of us that are deeply entrenched in it, what we are playing with today
Mhm.
isn't even going to be what we're playing with in 5 weeks from now.
Yeah.
But foundationally, and why I'm so excited to have this class today is foundationally, there are very important components to making whatever AI models you end up going down successful.
Yep.
And so I want to turn it over to you. I'd love a little bit of a history from you, and sort of give us a high level overview of your expertise in this area, and really drawing on your understanding of data, and that I want to remove the fear that is always attached to that word when it
Yeah.
comes to business. So I'm
Absolutely.
going to turn it over. Here
Okay.
you go.
Cool. Thank you for the intro. Yes, my name is Jen, and my background is in tech. Like Gabri mentioned, I've been in software as a service for over a decade and have really focused on staying ahead of the curve, right? When it comes to technology. And I think we haven't really seen anything like AI. Everyone knows that it's just disrupting everything. And a lot of us are being sold that it's, like the magic pill, right? Use AI, it's going to make your life easier, right? Handling too much, use AI, right? Like it's going, like everything you see on social media is about it. But I think, like you said, Gabri, it's changing so quickly in a matter of weeks and days. And none of that, all of that is noise if you don't have the right foundation, right? And that's really what I've focused on in all of my previous tech companies, is really being able to implement and adopt the software tools so that you're actually seeing the desired outcome rather than just being like, I'm paying for something and I'm only using 10% of it, right? And now I'm not happy and it's not giving me what I want. And that happens a lot.
I think that that's an excellent point, because as we move through the adoption of AI, I'm sure that there are people that are watching this, businesses that we know, where they've brought in AI platforms and they're spending money on these tools, and inevitably they're breaking or they're not working in a way that they necessarily were sold. And I use that air quotes because I think that it's so early on, and understanding the adoption value is still very challenging. However, yeah, I think there's this huge miss in a business where people are overspending on things that they're not using. I mean, that's before AI
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like that's like
That's
an
always been the case.
inherent, yeah, an
It's just
inherent
worse
stuff.
now. It's
Yes.
louder now,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, I'm seeing that, there's a lot of people talking about how AI isn't working, and I completely understand that, but it's not a magic button, right? It's not something you can just turn on and it's magically going to make your life easier. I wish that were the case, because I think as founders and entrepreneurs and just innovators, we're constantly juggling so many things. And this is men and women, but I see this across a lot of moms like myself, right? I can speak to that. I'm a mom first, but I have so many other passions and desires for my career, and it's a lot to juggle everything. And so AI can help, but I would rather other people learn from my mistakes instead of having to make those mistakes themselves. And I say that because as soon as building with AI really became a thing, I jumped 100% into it. I made mistakes. I wasted tokens, right? Like to build things that I didn't know. And I've learned from that. And now I think that is the number one takeaway I have from building with AI, is just having a really strong foundation, right? So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, is before you add that component, before you even pay all the services, right? Subscription to Claude or ChatGPT, and you're having all these different conversations with people around which platform you should be using, which tool you should be using. We're not quite there yet. We really need to focus on what your desired outcome is, right? Because like I mentioned, using AI is the wrong prescription for a business when you're carrying too much. That is literally the opposite of what's being sold to us, right? Is, hey, if you are carrying too much, use AI, you can make 5,000 different agents and they're going to do all kinds of things for you. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to get there first before we do that, right? So by the end of the hour, we're going to talk a little bit about clarity. So you'll know whether your business is actually ready for AI, or if you're just curious, right? And where you are in that planning process. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of those stages, as long as you know where you are, right? You can start to build a framework. So there's going to be 5 data sets I'm going to talk about today that I think every business needs to know and have in place before they start layering AI on top of that. And then we'll talk about a starting point, right? Because this is all fun and games, but like, where is this going? What is our desired outcome? What do we want to see from this? And that's really what I'm going to be focusing on today. So why most businesses are not AI ready, right? It's because AI is a mirror. This is how I look at it. It amplifies what you already have. So if you put clean data in, and there's that big scary word, data, right? And let me give you some context. I am not a data nerd. In fact, I hate numbers, but they matter to me when it matters to my business. And this is where, like, I know enough to make sure that I'm running my business properly, but I'm definitely not into data. That being said, I am into AI. So I know that I need to have clean data in order to get clean data out, right? And so that we know exactly what to do before it happens. And I think that's such a magical power that I see a lot of women having, is that we just have the ability to recognize patterns very quickly and go, we see something's, I see that with my son all the time, Gabriel. I'm like, he's going to get hurt. If he keeps doing that, he's going to get hurt. 5 minutes later, he gets hurt, right? And it's the same thing with AI. It's like, the issues are there. We need to fix them. And we can only do that if we have the right data, right, to point us in the right direction. So we all know this: messy data in equals confident sounding nonsense. So one thing that I recognized at the company I co-founded previously, we were a tech company in cannabis. We wanted to use AI as quickly as we can, right? Everyone was talking about it. So we decided, you know what, let's see how we can layer it into our software to make the lives of our clients easier, right? Sounds really fun and easy, but it wasn't that at all. In fact, we launched it, and as customers were asking questions, AI started to basically hallucinate, right? And make up answers and just cause more confusion in the end. And so we should have waited, gathered all of our data, made sure it was clean. In fact, we should probably have used AI to make sure that data was clean, and then feed it back into AI, right? To then be our chatbot. But again, learning from my mistakes to make sure that, you don't repeat those mistakes as well. So let's talk a little bit about signs that your business isn't ready, right? So the first thing is you can't answer basic operational questions, right? Without digging through files, without having to call somebody else. If you can't get that information and feel confident about it, then your business is probably not ready. I mean, this is different for everybody, right? So I don't want to generalize, but just from all across the different verticals I've worked with, whether it was in cannabis or in small businesses, cafes, anything, it doesn't matter. You definitely want to make sure you have that. And then when your different team members are giving you different answers, that is the biggest red flag, right? Because the SOPs probably live in someone's head and not on paper, or if it does exist, it's not being followed by everyone involved. And I think that's the biggest issue when it comes to collecting that data, is we have to get everybody's involvement, right? Kabri, have you seen that as well too?
Yeah, I think that I'm just thinking about it from an alchemy perspective where, as a founder and startup, even in my current very infant stage, I was just taking a note because I was like, God, I can't answer those, like even just thinking about it from a purely sort of operational kind of pro forma perspective of like, where are all of my expenses? What am I currently spending money on? What am I, who am I needing to pay? Just all of these things that as an individual operator, I am like just going. And I just made a note because even in my own business currently, there are all of these pieces that I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not AI ready.
We're all learning,
My
right?
data is
Yeah.
not clear, and I wouldn't be able to answer without digging through files. So yes, I mean, I see it all the time. And I mean, I think it's a challenge just because I think that operators operate. And that's why I do think that bringing AI in at the point where it's going to be effective is so useful and amazingly beneficial. But,
Yeah.
comma, the information has to be accurate. And, so there's this kind of chicken egg situation where we want AI to help us organize our operations and to be able to present a very clear picture of what we're doing. But it's also going to be really difficult because we don't have organized operations. So it's like this challenge.
Absolutely. And we're building as we are flying the plane, right? And so it's really hard to capture, even your SOPs are always changing. So we're talking about, hey, make sure everyone follows the SOPs, but also SOPs are changing all the time. And it's hard to stay on top of that. And that's really where I think if we think about how we want to work with AI and what we want to get out of it, I would not use AI to write my SOPs, but I absolutely would use AI to update my SOPs. Right. So there's a little bit of that difference there where I think, sometimes we're like, we're not really sure how we want to use this tool. And it sounds like it could do everything and everything, but we actually don't know how it applies to us. And that's where the last bullet on here is it says you're using, your AI, but you can't articulate the outcome, right? So in order for you to really get what you want out of AI, and at least from what I've seen, is I need to at least be able to visualize what I want in the end, right? And the way I work with it is I'll work backwards.
I think it's a really interesting point that you just brought up about the SOPs, because I think a lot of people will just automatically revert to whatever tool it is that they're using and tell it to create an SOP. And I just want to I want to kind of point out one little factor that I think a lot of people that I know, that part of their resistance to adopting AI is the lack of humanity that's involved in it. And I want to stress in all of the things that we talk about, particularly with AI and particularly through alchemy, is that I don't think that AI removes the human component from anything. And in fact, it requires us, and because the other piece is that people are like, oh, it removes critical thinking. But what I find is that it actually, when you're in it and you're using it, it is engaging with your brain in a way that you have to bring very clear prompts. You've got to be thinking 12 steps ahead to be able to let it achieve that process for you. You're not, otherwise, then you talk about like making those mistakes. You're using up all of the sudden, you're paying whatever, $20 a month or whatever that looks like. And you do one thing and it's gone.
Yeah.
And so I want to kind of stress that the human component is so critical to getting the tool to produce what you want it to produce. And your critical thinking, I mean, I find my brain working faster now than it ever has. And being like, like, it's one of the things that I love about it is that all of the sudden I'm like, I have this idea and then I'm thinking about it 20 steps ahead where I'm like, okay, but if I do this, then I have to do that. And then I have to do this. And so I find it actually engaging my critical thinking in a far greater capacity than I've actually been able to function in many of my other tech roles, because it does move faster.
Yeah, it does. And you're absolutely right. I think what I see people failing, and even myself in the very beginning when I was playing around with AI before I started building, I would just ask it all kinds of questions and leave it at that, right? I would never question it. I would never push back, right? I would never challenge AI, right? And I think that's where the critical thinking comes in, because the hallucination part is real, right? AI is meant to say, hey, if we don't have the data, we're just going to plug it in to give you an example, right? And so knowing that if the information is incorrect, it's because you haven't given it enough information yet. And it's literally a mirror of what you're thinking, how you want to communicate, how you process information. So I'm 100% with you. I think, once we can embrace that we're working alongside and with AI rather than letting it work for us in the way that like it controls our thinking, it can't. It really can't.
Yeah, agree.
Awesome. Cool. Let's go into some of the data sets that matter, right? So the one that I think, and this is our part 2, where we're going to go over the 5 data sets that matter. The first one is really what we were just talking about, right? Operational data, your SOPs. And so you'll see number 1, we've got operational. Then we go into the customer data, like who they are, what they buy, how they behave, and really why it matters, right? Then we have the financial data, clean books, accurate categorization, real-time visibility, prompt and workflow data, right? So documented prompts, what you were just talking about, Gabrielle, like you really have to know exactly, like think steps ahead, many steps ahead, and be able to challenge and write, your AI responses, as well as write really clean prompts to follow up, right, from that. And repeatable AI workflows, just like anything else, just like any SOP. If you don't have a repeatable process, there's no way of knowing whether or not it's helping your business, right? So that goes back to the SOP process, making sure everything is documented. And really, that's where you can use AI, because you don't have time in your day when you're wearing multiple hats to keep pulling up your SOP folder, right, and updating it every 5 minutes. That's where you can build an agent in AI and say, hey, that SOP for this workflow, can you please add this and change that? You don't even have to type. You can just talk at it, right? And now these tools will do it for you. But again, knowing exactly what your outcome is, why you want to use it, what your desired outcomes are, the metrics, how you track them, and then really working backwards from the goal will protect you from chasing different tools. We talked about it's loud right now, right? Use all the different tools. There's so many. And I think even for me, there were times where I felt really intimidated by all the different options, even coming from tech. I was always on the customer side of it, right? Like really understanding what people need and what they want out of the process rather than, just throwing it out there and see what happens next. Like I really want to make sure I know exactly what the clients are asking for. So operational data. Your SOPs, processes, and documented workflows, it's really the rules of how your business actually runs, right? So why it matters, we talked about it. AI can't run when it hasn't been defined. It really needs to, the tools will amplify your process. So if you don't have a process, it's going to be really obvious, right? You're going to see the gaps in your business and AI will only enhance what's wrong versus helping you out. And that's not what you want. So definitely making sure you have those SOPs. Where it breaks today is typically in people's head, not on paper. So again, you can use AI as you're building out your tools with AI. You can tell AI to build those SOPs at the same time. But again, you're working with it. It understands exactly what you're trying to achieve. It's helping you build the process, and then you're going to have it documented, right, for you. But again, it can't do this without you giving it direction first, and really clear direction. And we talk about this, right? The new hires take months to ramp up. And so really being able to understand, okay, if I'm hiring someone today, right, and they have no knowledge of AI and I need to ramp them up really quickly, how can I best do this? And that's really the outcome that we're looking for, is what is our, AI SOP. So let's go ahead and talk about the next part. Before I do that, did you have any insight on the operational data part, Gabri? Anything you wanted to add?
I think the thing that pops up for me and just some of the clients that I work with right now, so in specifically regarding the SOPs, I work with some clients currently that are really foundational businesses. I mean, they've been running for a while and they've got SOPs already in place. And I think that it sort of is that, I guess I'm reiterating the concept that you've discussed, which is you can take what you've done and make it better and make it cleaner, but you can't ask it to do it for you. And, the benefit to AI and the benefit to businesses that have been around and that do have these systems in place, that's the data. And that's where the AI gets to start learning what it is you're teaching it. And so the more information that you can give it, the more SOPs that you have, the more that you're able to upload that information into the tool or the platform that is chosen, obviously the better that information is going to come back. It learns what it needs to do a lot faster. And I think the whole concept of the SOP, just because I know that at this point, some of those customers that I'm working with are like, oh yeah, we have all these old ones, but I'm just going to use ChatGPT to rewrite them all. And it's like, put on the brakes. Like, no, don't do that. You've got all of this great, juicy information. Use it, don't just forego because you're wanting to try to do something faster or quicker. And I think that, that's kind of the thing that I'll mirror for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about the next part, which is customer data, right? So let's talk a little bit there. So we want to know who your customers are, what they buy, how they behave, and how all of that connects across touch points, right? So I knowing that a lot of the people you work with already have established businesses, most of them probably already have a CRM as well. But how are they using it?
You would be surprised, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you would be surprised. Yeah.
And you know what? I think the thing about CRMs is there's so many different ways. There's so many different ones to use, and then people end up going back to spreadsheets and they're like, this is my CRM, right? I saw that a lot at my previous companies where I have worked with, thousands of cannabis companies, and I'll ask them, do you have a book of business? Do you have, your contacts in it? And usually they'll say, yeah, I do. I've got it all, right? I'm like, perfect. Send it over. I'm going to get that data into our system. And I kid you not, sometimes it would take weeks to clean up that data, right? Weeks.
Oh, yeah.
I wish AI was around then.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
because it was all done internal, like just all manually cleaning up the data. But that's what I mean. Like AI can't get the data for you to put in a date to AI. But once you get it, then you can say, hey, clean this up, right? Remove all the things that I don't need in there. And it's just been really great. So, but back to what we were saying with customer data, if you don't have a CRM, that's okay, right? If you have a spreadsheet, that's fine, because with AI, that's exactly what you're going to use. You're going to take that spreadsheet, as messy or as clean as it is, right? Plug it into AI and have it bring, really analyze your book of business and give you exactly who you need to focus on and how they behave, right? Like we talked about, and really using AI to connect with them, right? With those different cohorts of customers. But yeah, any insights there on customer data?
No, I mean, the thing, and I'm jumping because I think we can address it when we get through the 5 data sets, but I think that one of the key components that really I think needs to be brought up prior to getting through the rest of these is that the beauty of AI is that when you have all of this information clean, you actually can build a system that integrates all of this information so that now you're running through, you've got your operational component that is directly tied to your customers. And then you've got all of this customer data that's directly tied to your marketing strategy. And then you've got your marketing strategy that's directly tied to your financials. And then you've got your financials that are directly tied to your operations. And you have the ability through AI to build automated systems that don't currently exist, which is, I mean, plug for Alchemy. I mean, that's where we live, is that in the understanding that all of this stuff can be systemized into a fully automated program.
Absolutely. Isn't that cool? It's
It's
really cool.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Because to be able to do that before this implementation, would be hundreds of thousands of dollars and months and months and months of programming, to the point where once it was actually done, it would already be irrelevant to your business. Yeah. So, just kind of going back into the data and reiterating why this information is so important is that these individual silos matter deeply to their own silo, and then sort of looking up above that and saying, but the big picture of this is the reason why is because all of this stuff feeds your business. Mm-hmm. And up until this point, we really haven't been able to automate that information to the point where we can now. And it's like thinking about what I do, even with my own financials, is that I have created a financial model that ties to my CRM, that ties to my marketing website, and all of that information is completely and totally automated. So I built it, and now when I turn a customer into a customer, what level of customer and where does that go? And it keeps my pro forma, it keeps my snapshot of my business's financial health at the forefront by literally, I just have to log in and look at a dashboard. And I am not doing anything. I mean, I did a lot of it, but I'm literally like, that's a piece of it that I don't have to look at every single day or do my inputs every day, or my QuickBooks that I don't have, like, it just does it for me, and it's clean, and it's a literal like, oh, let me just look at my dashboard today. Mm-hmm. Oh, I got this many, and then it can allow me to then look at like, oh, I need to bump up my marketing on this side of things. So just, mm-hmm. I don't know, I could go on and on about this, and I will stop so that we can continue on with your data sets. But that's why this stuff is important.
It really is. You
And
can't forecast without it.
you can't.
You can't make good decisions. You can't make decisions you're 100% confident about, I guess, in other words, right? Because
Right.
you don't have the big picture.
Right.
And that really brings me to my next point is really the financial data. This is probably the most important thing that I'm going to talk about besides the outcome, right? Financial data, it's all numbers, and AI is great with math. So if you're not using AI to clean up your financial data to make sure everything is teed up and cleaned, then you're really missing the opportunity there. Because we all know that, quarterly fire drill, right? Where we have to look at the books. Where if we could get ahead of that, we don't have to be so reactive, right? We can just be proactive and use AI to make sure that when you, like you said, you log into a dashboard and it's all there for you, right? So the executive function, I think we get to use all of this brain power we used to put towards manually creating all of this, right? Whether it's, building your book of business in a spreadsheet or managing your QuickBooks by yourself, it doesn't really allow us to create, right? And make the decisions that really matter to the company sometimes because we're too busy in the books. Now we could focus on the things that really matter for the business and allow AI to run the numbers for you, right? Anything you wanted to add to that as well?
No.
Nope. Awesome. The next one is what we talked about, and Gabri, you and I have talked about this before. Really learning how to work with AI, right? Writing your prompts. I like to look at writing. It matters because when you write the prompts, it really guides your AI to your desired outcome, whatever that, goal is at the end. And I like to talk to my AI like it's my kid almost. Like I will lay it out. This is what we're doing, like setting expectations, right? This is what we're doing. This is what I expect. I want to see X, Y, Z. And then at the end, we're going to do this, right? And then it goes from there. But I think that to me is how I found that working with prompts are really important, is to understand how to talk to your AI and setting the expectation, or in sales, right? Setting the stage.
I will reiterate that because a lot of the way that I work with my AI is I tell it what role it is today. So, you are my chief financial officer and I need you to blah, 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 blah. And I think that when you give it those guardrails is when it's going to perform the best for you. And so just again, reiterating, I think, we use it really similarly, but you have to tell it, you've got to give it expectation. It's like working with a toddler.
Yeah.
Really. Like, this is how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
These are my expectations. And this is what I need for you to help me figure out. And then, go do it how you're going to do it. But this is what I want my end result to be.
Yeah.
And you can do it however you want, but this is the guideline.
Yep. You have to give it direction. Yeah. Like within a framework, right? Freedom within a framework is what I like to say. Like, stick to this, but X, Y, Z. And the other thing I also found is that writing good prompts will save you tokens, right? A lot of people aren't talking about that yet. And it's not something that you're going to really think about when you first start with AI. You're just trying to learn it, right? And that's fine. But once you're using it more and more, I feel like knowing the exact prompts to save your token so you can build and automate more is so important. I actually like to record my prompts still. I'm using AI, all right? I tell it to remember things that I want, my preferences. But in the end, if I have a really, really strong prompt, I'll still save it, in a doc somewhere so that I can come back to it anytime. And I think that's really saved me a lot of time as well.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, it just helps, right? And then that builds into your SOPs later, right? Once you have it nailed down. And I'll even, for example, like I'll talk to Claude and I'll say, hey, we've talked about all this. Now write me a prompt. I'll even have it write me a prompt, and so that I can start to work off of that prompt, right? And build on it.
Which I think is also a really important thing, is that if you're using multiple systems, AI talking to AI is really beneficial because they know how each other speaks. And so I do that often, is that I will say, write me a prompt for blah, 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 blah. And it will create the prompt so that I can then take that prompt, plug it into the next tool that I'm using to build whatever I need to build. And I do that often. And I agree with you that if I ask one tool to provide me a prompt for another, it saves me so much time and tokens and ability to maximize the output. So yeah, I just will reiterate that.
Yeah, it's something we've learned, right? I didn't know that in the beginning, and I wasted a lot of tokens. But after a while, and this goes back to just the SOPs, you want to be able to have a new employee mirror exactly those prompts when they're starting their day, for example, right? If they need to know the numbers for the morning before they start, or what their book of business looks like for the day, those prompts are really, really going to come in handy.
One other thing I want to just jump in, just because it's just popped into my head about prompting and just the way that AI works. I've actually, because I've used just through my trial and error also of learning this new methodology, I have actually had my AI tools say to me, if it will say back to me, like, if you do something different with this tool, it will actually save you. It will save you, sometimes they're tokens, sometimes they're not, but whatever. It has come back to me and said, basically, you're using this tool incorrectly and refine the way that you're talking to me because you're wasting a lot of your effort. Like it has actually come back to me and said that.
That's awesome. And it's so important because it is changing. Like you said, how what you like in 5 weeks, it could be completely different.
Yeah.
I've had the same situation where I've been working in one tool. I've gotten to know it very well. It mirrors me, right? And now I need to work on a new tool and I'm starting from scratch.
Right.
Oh, it's really frustrating.
Yeah. Because you want to go back to what's comfortable and what we're seeing is that what might be comfortable is not necessarily the best for whatever it is that you're using. I mean, that's like big picture in life anyway, right? Like, let's get out of our comfort zone if it's not actually doing the things we need it to do. So,
but I agree with you that I don't think AI is going to replace humans. Not the critical thinking, not the outcomes, right? And we keep talking about that, but I really think that that is the secret ingredient. It's not so much AI being the secret ingredient, it's you knowing what your outcome is, like what you want to get. Like we talked about, you're talking to a toddler, right? And you're saying, do X, Y, Z, and I want to see this. And that has been the biggest thing for me, is being able to work backwards from that goal and then make sure that your goals are very specific, right? Because if you're saying things like, oh, I just want to be more efficient, that's actually, I mean, you'll get an answer, but it's probably not as good as it can be. And then we're talking about now, you're not getting the most out of it, you're spending more time on it, and you're wasting tokens. So really important to make sure that you know exactly what you're looking for. And I think also separating them too, right? And really having that process, like I'm kind of old school. I think of a filing system, right? When I think of running a business. And so I have so many chats that are different files, and that's how I look at them. And in each of those files, I make sure that I'm as, data or as detail oriented as possible in each of those files. And then again, after that, if I need to bring them back together, I have that chat or that file write me a prompt and I bring it back together, right? And that's how I typically get my outcomes.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the biggest things I'll tell you of learning about ChatGPT because that was the first one that I started using. And I would just keep going, and I would just be like, it would just be this thing and I would just type it. And then all of a sudden I realized, like, oh my gosh, I can actually organize this with a new chat. So if I'm going to talk about a new topic, it's a new chat. And then you can search within that chat. And it was like a game changer for me learning that, but I didn't know that,
I
like I
was
was like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and every time that I want to ask it a question, I'm just going to keep going in the same chat that I've had, even though the questions I'm asking it are different, blah, blah, blah. And then, the thing that's great about that is that you can go back into that chat anytime you need to get more information, and you can pull from that
Or have that
conversation
prompt.
that's already
Yeah.
been happening. And so yeah, I mean, it's an interest, it's funny, but yeah, we're all
Learning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see how things will change as more and more people like us come out and say, this is how we use the tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's our use case. And I'm curious to see what everyone else is doing too. But in
Yeah.
time, we'll know.
We'll get there. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the reframe, because we are talking about, like, I know you started with ChatGPT, I started with Claude, there's now Open Claude, there's just so many. And I found myself getting intimidated and overwhelmed to the point of being like, you know what, I don't think it really works. But I had to reframe my thinking, because once I realized, like, it's not that, it's me, it's what I'm inputting into the tool. And so instead of, maybe always asking, like, how do I use AI? We should just talk about, what do we really want out of AI, right? What are we looking for? And that could be just one single thing, start with that, or it could be 5 different things, but really knowing exactly what you want will be able to, the required data, you'll be able to get the data and the required documentation so that you have exactly what you need for AI to work with. So I like to look at the outcome, right? And then data, what does the answer require? And then we need documentation. And then what's the simplest path? Then we figure out the tool. That is literally the last piece, whether it's ChatGPT, AI, whatever system you want to use, the tool that you're going to use is literally the last decision you need to make, right? Everything else comes before that AI part. And sometimes it's not even the right tool. Like, you'll see I have it down here. I want to make a note that not every single thing should be run through AI, right? There's always going to be a human component that we're going to need, our discretion, right? AI doesn't have that.
Right. That's a great point.
And then the real payoff is that clean foundations aren't just good operations, right? The whole point is you want to stop carrying all of that weight on your shoulders. I've firsthand experienced that myself, where I thought it was just mentally on my shoulders until, one day I randomly broke my ankle. And I've never had an ankle, injury in my life. And so that was really, really weird. But again, it's your body is holding on to so much pressure, and AI can really help you with that if you use it properly, right? We're going to be able to wear fewer hats because you have AI updating things for you. You're going to be able to sleep better because you're not holding all of those to-dos and tasks and responsibilities and the weight of making these large decisions on you. You can say, hey, I'm going to run this through AI. It's going to feed back the information to me and allow me to really make a decision that's best for me and my business. And then that's really when you're going to actually see it compound. Like, you'll really, really see the results over time. Again, if you're just coming in and saying, I want a quick response, write me some SOPs, you'll get the SOPs, but you're not going to be happy with it, right? Just like anything else, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think if maybe go back to that slide, because I think that particularly with women and the way that we operate in our lives, and if you're a parent or if you're not, or if you're married or if you're not, we by nature multitask. And I think that it's so important to really kind of hone in on this piece of it, and where this can actually help in the big picture of your well-being, which then ultimately makes you a better operator in all aspects of your life.
Yep.
So I think it's really good to kind of just take a pause on this moment of just like, yes, all of this that we're talking about, it's not about the systemization of a business because we want to function in our business and be this machine. It's about the fact that we are humans running businesses, and that by default, we are wearing 50 hats, and that can be marketer, operator, financial officer, mom, wife, friend, HR director, like all of those things. And that's by default the way that women operate. And so being able to take all of this and just sort of looking at it that we're not talking about using AI because we think that it's this next wave of the world. I mean, that's part of it, but kind of looking at it from the perspective of what that does for our ability to function more wholly in our lives outside of our work,
Yep.
which
100%.
makes us better at everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
just
That is the goal. That is,
Mhm.
you're absolutely right. I'm glad you brought that up because that's at the end of the day, that is the goal. And AI doesn't just help me with my business, it helps me in other parts of my life too, right? Like whether it's meal planning or something at my son's school, right? A project I'm helping with, I use it for all of that. And it allows me to be more present in the moment with my son, with my clients, with my partners, whoever, right? When I'm able to use AI in the right way.
Mhm. Yep.
For sure. So the starting point. Now, this can look a lot different for a lot of different people, but I wanted to at least give some options, right, to start with if someone wanted to just start to explore on their own. Don't try to fix all 5 at once. Take your time, right? Like I know AI is moving fast. We just talked about how in 5 weeks things are going to change. So you don't have to be ahead of everybody on that. You just need to know how you want to use it, right? And take your time with it. Like it's okay, to use up your tokens if you have to, if that means that's what you're learning and you're making mistakes and you're going from there. But pick the one that where the breakage is costing you the most sleep, right? And start from there. And that might just be documenting one SOP, right? Or updating it, audit one customer list, clean out 1 month of books with AI, save one prompt that worked, right? That's probably the coolest. I love that. When I have a prompt tell me what the weather is going to be every morning, what my calendar looks like for the day, and anything specific that is school related for my son. So every morning I drop this prompt in and Claude tells me my little rundown, right? And then I know exactly how to plan my day. And that's just one prompt, right? That really helped me with everything else. And then write one outcome down, the specific thing that you want from AI in the next 90 days and make it concrete, right? Like really learn from that experience. And then I think from there, you're going to see for me anyway, as a user of AI, a lot more success, the more patient I was with myself. Also because AI is not perfect either. We talked
Right.
about hallucination, right? There are times where I'm like, I told you this already, and it
Mhm.
didn't capture the memory, which is why writing down those prompts again are so important so that you don't have to redo that later. It is changing in real time.
Yep. Yeah. And I also find that, that the mistakes, they are real. And sometimes I will like yell at my AI. Like, I've told you this 3 times. Like,
I have
why
to.
are you not producing, why is that, it happens.
Yep.
So yeah.
And it gets smarter too, which is really kind of weird to see. Like, they have all these different versions of it. And that's where, again, the intimidation of using it. I'm like, what's an Opus? What's a Sonnet? And those were just all Claude. It was all
Right.
Claude. It's just different versions of Claude, the smarter one or the less smart one, right? Or however you want to look at it. But it is funny to see the work that I did with it 3 months ago is not as good as the work that I'm doing it with it now, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Everyone's learning.
Yeah, even AI.
Right.
Especially. But yeah, that's really, the end of my presentation around today around just AI and really the whole point of it is to make it be successful, right? For you, no matter what the outcome is, whether it's for you personally or for
Mhm.
professionally, it's going to take that weight off your shoulders so you can spend time being present, right? And taking care of yourself and your health.
Yeah. And I think, I really want to stress that again, just because I think that that's a hugely missed opportunity in terms of the why
Mhm.
and in the conversation around AI, which is that, yeah, like it's on the surface, it's doing all of these things, and there's all of this excitement, and it's moving us faster, and we're being able to do these things. But taking that moment, that momentary pause of like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And it's like, why did I start a business? For more flexibility, and then you get into a business and you're not sleeping because you're wearing 50 hats, and there's all, and I think that where we can take this, and the thing for me that's so critically important, is really to understand that the reason behind all of this, yes, it's to make your business more efficient, but what happens personally when that happens?
Yep.
All of the sudden, you're given back hours of time that you can do life in, and that it's not just a constant grind of moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. And you're just like, oh, I can actually enjoy what I'm doing for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
um,
really be present.
yeah,
Absolutely. That's the hardest part right now when we're
yeah,
juggling so many different things.
yeah. So this was awesome. And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Um,
Absolutely. I was really nervous because, it's a lot. It's a new topic for me. We're all learning, right? I'm not perfect and I want people to learn from my mistakes and just to really encourage people who are new to this. We're all new to this. It
yeah.
doesn't matter if I'm talking about it like I've been doing it for 10 years. I am brand new to this as well. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of cool to see that, as long as I think it's a really beautiful time for women who are building in this space. We know the outcomes we want. Now we have the tools to make it happen and to support us with that. And it's really fun.
It is. It's super cool. And I think that it's just, I'm excited by where we're going, and just being able to see what the future holds when it comes to this, because we are at the very, very, very early stages of whatever
Mhm.
this is going to look like.
Yep.
So it's exciting for me. I mean, and I think, you and I can live in it. Like, we've lived in the tech space for so many years that, of course, we're going to probably geek out over it a little bit more than other people. But that's great, because then we get to be the ones that are like, here's what we learned, and
Yeah.
impart our knowledge. And so it's great. So
Mhm.
thank you so much. I'm
Yes.
really, really excited. And this was very, very informative.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.